I brewed my first American lager, and it turned out well. Tasty and super clear for homebrew, at least, without filtering. Turned out great, and I did it in just 3 short weeks. If you'd like to see more about it, stick around. Hello everyone and welcome back. Larry here again to talk about my latest recipe, an American Standard Lager. I never brewed one of these before, my first time going at this in over 20 years of brewing. I've been avoiding this beer style, partially because why do homebrewers get into homebrewing in the first place? They want to make better beer than what you can get off the shelf in the local grocery store or liquor store, right? Like the usuals, the Coors, the Budweisers, the Millers, the old styles, the Paps, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Those beers were bland and not so flavorful over the years, and that's why a lot of us get into the hobby of homebrewing. We want to make better flavored beers, better tasting beers, right? However, it is a challenge to make an American Standard Lager, or any lager really, honestly, in order to get the clarity that you're looking to get there, and the neutral flavor that's not overly bitter, not too hoppy, not without a nasty aftertaste, getting rid of the diacetyl or diacetyl flavor out of there, and which is one big reason why I avoided this for years. But in the past few years, as you may have known from my channel, I've been getting into more lagers. I love lagers. Started doing a Vienna lager a few years ago, doing a traditional style lagering, which took a matter of weeks and months. Not a fan of that whole long process, honestly. Then I started getting into pressure fermenting a few years ago. I started doing pressure ales and pressure lagers. Did a Munich lager. I've done Oktoberfest lagers. I've done a Vienna lager again, but under pressure. And this is what I had done here again. This is done under pressure fermentation. And I did it, I actually had to split a 10-gallon batch into 2 different fermenters. One was the new Fermenter King Snub Nose, the new Gen 3, and the other fermenter was the Kegland Firmzilla. So 3 weeks start to finish rather than 2 to 3 months, right? Big winner, especially now that the hot summer heat is upon me, at least here now today. And this is quite a thirst quencher. Oh man, yeah. So it turned out well. I chose this style. I've been wanting to do this style for a while. Just never quite got around to it the past year. However, I had a reason to brew a batch. I just had a high school graduation party for my daughter last weekend, and I was going to have a number of people over, and I wanted to serve a beer that most people would drink, and that would be thirst quenching in the June heat here where I live. So decided to go ahead and brew this lager, and under pressure, got that done. Gelatin fining to help clear it. A week to carbonate in the keg, and it was ready to go just in time for the party. It was a hit. First keg gone, and probably within a couple hours or less. The next keg still got a little bit left here from that in order to show you the beer before it was all gone. I was actually a little worried that it was going to be all gone, and I couldn't do this video. So luckily, I had a margarita station and some other drinks for others to take advantage of, and was able to salvage a little bit of the second keg here, right? I've done this fermenting under pressure and gelatin fining process already a number of times on my channel. Started with my 11-day lager recipe I'd done. I followed it up with a Munich lager. I've done a Oktoberfest lager. I've done Vienna lagers. I've done a whole bunch of lagers already. So if you want to see more about the details on how to do pressure fermentation in detail, I'll put a little link up here and down in the video description to some of these past videos. What I want to talk more about is what's different about this grain bill and this recipe than my other lagers is the fact that I'm using corn as an adjunct in here. Now I've never used, well no, I can't say I've never used, I've used corn as adjuncts for ales, like a cream ale, things like that, but I've never done an American lager, like I said, and those generally have either rice as an adjunct, which was my first choice, but rice prices for some reason are way higher around here than it is for corn. So me being the tightwad, no, I'm just kidding, but it was like at least half the price, if not a third of the cost, to go with corn here. So I decided to go with a corn lager at first. This is about, let's see what the grain bill is here. I'll probably do a rice lager at some point in the future too, of course, more like along the lines of a PBR or a Budweiser. This to me actually tastes more like a Coors Banquet beer if you were to want to know what it tastes like. But this is better. In fact, so much better that it really does remind me of a tour I had at the Coors Brewery out in Golden, Colorado a few years ago, where they walk you through well, the facility, give you the whole tourist thing, right? But they also get you some samples directly from the kegging line of the beer, going from the fermenters right into the kegs, right? Or the bright tanks into the kegs. And that's some of the freshest beer I've ever had. And this is right up there with it. Oh man. All right, so back to the grain bill. So for the corn, it was about 25% of the grain bill. So I had a 2-row pale malt at 70%, the flake corn at 25%, and some rice hulls at 5%. So it's a pretty straightforward, simple grain bill. And as far as the hops goes, I did a little research. I wanted the kind of hops that are used in these kind of beers, and I came across cluster hops. I don't know if those are the right hops for a Coors Banquet, but I'm sure it tastes close enough for my palate, at least. So I used 3 additions of cluster hops at 60 minutes, 30 minutes, and 5 minutes. A couple ounces, I think, there for a 10-gallon batch. Again, I'm going to put the recipe intermittently up on the screen, and or, of course, a link in the video description down below to the PDF version, as well as the full-blown spreadsheet for you to look at later. So don't worry about writing anything down right now. And the hops are really neutrally balanced. There's a hint of floralness, a hint of flavor, but this style is not supposed to have much of either one of those, so I think I did that right. And the bitterness is just there to make it crisp and refreshing. Oh, not overpowering at all. Oh, is that good? And it's so hot out today. And for clarifiers, I used some Wolf Lock tablets in the boil. I used my lager yeast. I used a dry yeast. I used the Saf Lager W3470 strain. I used 2 packets of that for a 10-gallon batch. And for a 5-gallon batch, I'll probably just use 1. I didn't. And since my water, as far as water goes, again, I'm only been getting into the water for the past couple of years, right? So it's a relatively new topic for me, but my water here in the Chicagoland area is a softer water, really good for lagers. It's really low in minerals, generally speaking. And I just had to make a small adjustment for the calcium chloride, I think, to bring the chloride sulfate ratio back into balance here a little bit. But otherwise, I didn't do anything else with that. I carbonated it at, let's see, 2.5 volumes of CO2 at about 38 degrees Fahrenheit, and a serving pressure of around 11.2, according to this, but around 11 psi on the keg, and it turned out perfectly. Oh, so good. As far as my mash schedule, I did a 2-step mash schedule. I did a 60-minute rest at 145 degrees Fahrenheit, that is, and a 30-minute step at 158 degrees. And that was to maximize the amount of sugars available for the yeast, because I wanted a really dry beer. I wanted to be crisp. I didn't want to be sweet or cloying or full-bodied. I want to be a light-bodied, dry lager that was refreshing. And I got it, man. I'm doing this again with rice maybe next time, just to see what happens. And if you're curious about the output details, like the OGs, final gravities, all that stuff, it's on my spreadsheet. I'll put in the links in the video description down below. But my final gravity turned out to be about 1.007, which is a little drier than the roughly 1.010 I normally get for a lot of my beers. And again, I think that was attributed to the first mash rest that I had to help what we call it, the enzymes chomp away at that starch to make them fermentable for the yeast later. It did really help there. I mean, this is a very crisp, dry beer, and it is refreshing. Again, I know I'm repeating myself, but it is refreshing, especially when it's 90-something degrees and almost probably 100% humidity outside, it feels like. And that's it, really. I mean, just short order, real simple grain bill, real simple recipe, guys. The trick here with this beer is to brew it so it's clear, light-bodied, and dry. And I think I accomplished all of those with the mash process. So and the fermentation and everything too. For fermentation, it was not really a big deal. I do all my fermentations room temperature, which is really just the ambient temperature of my basement, which for me is usually in the upper 60-degree range, Fahrenheit that is. And I let the pressure fermentation suppress the esters and all flavors from the yeast. And I mean, guys, go for it. I mean, this is don't let the fear of brewing a lager scare you away. There's been a huge strides in home brewing over the past 20 years or more that I've been involved in this hobby, and it's been quite eye-opening, the things that we were doing to get higher, better quality beers out of our homebrew. And I am just impressed of the things that we can do today with new products, new technologies, new science, experience, right? And there you go, my story about the American lager. All right, so if you found this video enjoyable, give me that thumbs up. If you have any questions about the process that I didn't cover today, just throw them down in the comment section here down below. I'll get back to you when I can. And for everyone else, Prost, or cheers, as we say in America, because it is the American lager this time. And all right, I'll talk to you all later.